Let's go, girls. Come on.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin and this is Powered Up Talk Radio and this is another episode of our Soul Search Tuesdays. We've had a lot of fun, Linda. I know I've had a lot of fun with these guests, our spiritual guests, and today we're going to take a little different direction. We're still going to talk about spirituality, but it's going to be more about belief and belief systems and belief in oneself. And we're going to welcome on Darcie Chan, and she is a true success story. So I can't wait to talk to her about her mindset, because this is a lady who had written an ebook like 10 years prior and tried to shop it around. It didn't sell. And then, she sells it after being, a New York Times bestseller ebook. It's just an amazing story, Linda, and it's a second career for her. So that's near and dear to my heart as we continue to reinvent ourselves. And then we're going to welcome on Gail Carruthers, who owns a spiritual network of executives, which is really cool. And she has the media company, so I'm excited to talk about her. But before we get into that, I want to hear all about your inspirational event today at Lord & Taylor. And Linda, for the guests that are listening today who haven't heard what you do with Shining Service, let us know what you do and why today was so special.
Service is my effort to help women veterans, and it's about a successful reintegration. And I don't think the public is aware of all of the challenges that they face, because women don't come forward. They don't self-identify. So you really just don't know all the time what they're going through. So it's really important that we bring awareness to this invisible group, because they need us and they need each other. So today we're doing a big Veterans Day event at Lord & Taylor on the 11th, but today was the fitting. They all got new outfits today at Lord & Taylor, so they were trying on clothes and shoes and jewelry, and Bobby Brown Cosmetics came up and did a little light makeup for them. They'll get the works when it's on the 11th, but it was so much fun, and Emmy Award-winning stylist David Zyla was there yesterday with help, pulling clothes from the store. And when they walked in this morning, there was just racks and racks of clothes that he picked out for each woman to try on and then choose what she loved the best. And it was fabulous. I mean, to see the difference in their faces when they first walk in to once we got started, and it was just miraculous, because our makeovers are so much more than just clothes and makeup and hair. It really reaches them very, very deeply inside, and they are just so grateful. But it's interesting, Lord & Taylor, I really am I've always been a fan of Lord & Taylor because I love to shop there myself. But this morning, as they were waiting to get into the store, which opened at 10 a.m., they didn't realize that every day, right before the store opens, they play the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, I knew it, but, I took it for granted, but they didn't. And so they were brought to tears about Lord and Taylor playing the Star Spangled Banner. So that was the perfect beginning to a perfect day, and it was wonderful. I mean, I'll have pictures on my Facebook page and Twitter very soon, because there was a photographer there taking pictures. We did a video that we'll show at the event, and the new general manager of the store came in to greet us, and they gave refreshments, and I mean, they couldn't have been nicer. So, ladies, please frequent Lord and Taylor. They are a wonderful organization. And they're not paying me to say this. I'm just saying they really went out of their way, above and beyond the call of duty, and I love them.
Oh, well, I love them too. I love them too because, anybody who opens their arms like that and their pocketbooks and their store and their psyche to welcome in people to make a difference is just, we can make a difference just by showing up. We can make a difference just by making an effort. And it's amazing to me, Linda, how much that does to change somebody's mindset.
Oh, my God. I mean, it really did. I mean, these women, either they don't take the time, or, some of them are mothers and they're working and they just don't have the time, or, funds are not that plentiful, so they don't really go out and buy clothes for themselves. It's just more practical stuff that, they need, not stuff that's a wow. Well, today they got a wow. And when they were looking in the mirror, they said, "Oh my God, I don't believe it! I don't believe it!" I mean, they looked gorgeous, and they were just, there was tears flowing. It was that special.
Oh, there's tears flowing now. I think about what it's like to look in the mirror, when you have a bad hair day or a bad clothing day and you look and you go, oh, when you don't like what you see, it's really hard to go out and conquer the world. And when you like what you see, you can go out and spread sunshine and make a difference. And, I don't think people recognize how important beauty is for women. I think they recognize it in the sales of products, but they don't recognize in how much it affects your self-esteem and the ability to reach and grow and inspire yourself to reach new heights and inspire others.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why the makeovers, as I said, are so much more than just the outside. They really touch very, very deeply on the inside. There was one woman there particularly, her name was Lisa, and, she came in, and I think she was a little bit nervous, and she didn't know what to expect, and she was kind of withdrawn more than the other women. But by the end, I mean, she was telling me stories she was really confiding in me and talking about what's going on in her life, and that she was in Iraq, and you could see the transformation already, and it was it's a wow. It really, I've done it we're going into our 5th year. I've done it a lot, but it's always a wow.
See, and I love that about you, because it's like it's hard to be jaded about someone being lifted up, someone being open and willing to share with you, what's going on with them, because that's the only time we can really make a difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm really excited about this study that we're starting. We got approval last week for our study, which is going to be really on the why military women aren't self-identifying and going for the help that they need. We all know the challenges that they face. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, whether it be jobs or money or relationships or sex or PTSD issues or sexual trauma issues. But they're there. We know the issues, but how come they're not coming forward for the help? And that's what this study is about. And we've got really good backing, because we have a very, very good ally who was just made the New York City Commissioner of Veteran Affairs. And she's a woman. She was a brigadier general. Her name is Lori Sutton. And she's behind us 100%. And, it's all, I think when we all work together, we can certainly make a difference.
Oh, absolutely. We can make a difference. We make a difference every day, even just what we're doing here
Yeah.
right now, just talking about what it takes to make a difference. And, I love when I get to hear what you're doing, Linda, because I'm so proud of you and I'm so proud of all the people that help you do what you do, because it really does make a difference. Because when we look in the mirror and we feel good, or we hear a story, women love stories. We talk about that all the time. And we've got not only a storyteller coming on the show coming up next, but we get to talk to her about how do you keep going, when you face rejection or you change careers. We're going to talk a lot about that, because both you and I, Linda, have gotten to a certain age in our life and decided this isn't enough, or I'm not just going to sit around and read books the rest of my life or watch TV. I want to make a difference. I want to do these things. But it really takes a lot of soul searching, don't you think, to make the choice of what to do?
No, absolutely. Change is very, very difficult. We've talked about it on the show before. When I transitioned from Wall Street to then doing the blog and then to Shining Service, it was the transition from Wall Street. It took me years and years and years to really work through it, because that was a big part of my life. That was a big part of my identity. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's not there, and you say, oh, my God, now what? So you have to do some soul searching to figure out, okay, it's not about what other people think. It's about how I'm feeling and what's going to make me feel good. What can I do that works for me? And it takes some time to figure that out.
It does. And we're going to bring Darcie Chan on. She's the current author of the New York Times bestseller, The MILL RIVER Recluse. She wrote a book called The MILL RIVER Redemption, and we're going to talk to her, not so much about her book, Linda, but we're going to talk to her about what kind of mindset did she have, what kind of beliefs did she have, because this lady was just a few years out of law school, and when she got employed as an attorney for the U.S. Senate, and here she is, this best-selling author of books that are set in small towns. So I'm really excited to talk to her.
Yeah, me too. No, I think women will get a lot from listening to her story.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio. And when we come back from the break, you're not going to want to miss our interview with the New York Times bestselling author of The MILL RIVER Recluse, Darcie Chan. When we come back from the break, we're going to visit with her, and we're going to learn what is her secret and how can we get some of it.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
The Woohoo Radio Network presents the Diva Download with Tracy and Tasha. If you think Diva is all about attitude and drama, think again. The Diva Download is the premier online radio program where girls of all ages, shapes, sizes, and colors get together to redefine what it means to be a diva so that all girls can discover their inner diva and develop a healthy sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Being a true diva means you're diverse, involved, value-driven, and active. That's today's diva. If you want to celebrate the girl in your life through education, encouragement, empowerment, and entertainment, join us every week on Tuesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and celebrate the essence of being a girl only here on the Woohoo Radio Network. Are you ready to start rocking that woohoo that only you do? Because Lisa Stedman is on a mission. She will dare you, challenge you, enlighten you, provoke and empower you to bring out that inner woohoo. Lisa is an internationally acclaimed best-selling author. She is a breakup expert, a brand consultant, CEO of Woohoo Inc. and the Woohoo Radio Network. She will show you how to take your boohoo and turn it into woohoo woohoo, get rebellious, and get real. Get your dreams off the back burner. Get inspired and motivated to take action. Start rocking that woohoo that only you do in love, life, and business. She is going to be here for you every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's some more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin. And Linda, as promised, we have Darcie Chan. She is the author of the MILL River Recluse, also the MILL River Redemption. I think she likes the letter R. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and I'm really excited to talk to her because I just love women who have successful second or third careers, and women who change their life or achieve a dream. And when I read about her ebook, that she had written it many years before she actually sold things, I just find it really inspirational. So I'm excited to talk to her.
Yes, absolutely. I really am curious to see how do you handle that rejection, and then what do you think changed when she actually got it out there and it became this huge hit? So that's very exciting. So let's talk to Darcie.
Yeah. Hey, Darcie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
So I got to ask you, you go to law school, okay, and I went to Northwestern, you went to Indiana, so there's already a rivalry. I just have to put that out there. And you're a cheesehead, so I have to love anyone born in Wisconsin. But you go to law school, then you're employed as an attorney for the U.S. Senate. You've got a rockin' career, married to a doctor or would-be doctor, soon-to-be doctor. Why write a book? Like, is that something that you had always dreamed about? Because you had a lot of success in your own right. And so because our show talks a lot to women who are deciding on a second or third career, especially something that's fulfilling at this point in their lives, can you walk us through some of that thought process that you had?
Sure. I have always wanted to be a writer. It was always sort of a dream of mine to write novels or to at least get a book published during my lifetime. That was my initial goal when I started writing. I saw it as a, kind of a daunting challenge, because it is, and I like a good challenge. I always have. I knew I wanted to write from the time I was a little girl. I remember I won a writing contest when I was in junior high. It was just, at the school district level, not a big deal. But I came home with my little trophy, and I said to my parents, I want to be a writer when I grow up. And I was 11 years old at the time, and I distinctly remember that because my mom, who was an English teacher, she said, "Oh, that's great, follow your dreams." And my dad, who was also in education, but on the administration side of it, was a little more realistic, and he said, it's a really ambitious thing to want to be a writer, but he said it's very difficult, and you might think about doing something as a career that will enable you to always take care of yourself, and then continue writing on the side, because there's no reason you can't do that. But you wouldn't have to suffer the rejection that most writers find, and be depending on it for your income. And of course, 11-year-old me did not want to hear this. But as I grew up and I got older, I realized that he's just telling me this out of love, and he was being very honest with me, and very realistic. So
he's being good old practical dad.
Of course, and I appreciate that so much, especially now, having grown up and now being able to look back with an adult perspective on that. So I actually ended up taking both my parents' advice. I always kept the dream alive that I would write a book someday, but I also wanted to be able to always take care of myself. I never wanted to have to worry, whether I'd be able to find a job, and if I didn't have enough education to support myself and help support my family. And so I became very interested in environmental law when I was in college, and I decided to go to law school to pursue a career in that area. And then when I started working for the Senate, I was actually assigned to a team of attorneys that draft environmental and natural resource legislation for the applicable committees in the Senate. So it was really a perfect fit in terms of my interest in what I was looking to do, and I was very happy with that. So
was that because there was a lot of writing involved?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I really liked about my job. There are all kinds of attorneys. Some attorneys are in the courtroom a lot, some are not. And I knew I never would want to be the kind of attorney who would be litigating. I think that's, it's a really high-flying, sort of exciting kind of career, but I'm much more comfortable behind the scenes, and I really like writing a lot more than I do arguing, although I did that in law school. So it was just, it was a perfect fit for me, and I really enjoyed interacting with my clients. I love the people in my office, and I fully intended to spend my career working in this office. I mean, most of the other attorneys did. The head of the office at the time had been there for more than 30 years, and it was one of those rare places on Capitol Hill where the turnover is very low, and you are sort of looked to for your expertise in terms of Senate procedure and the institutional memory, because so many congressional staffers do work just for a couple years and then they leave to find, better paying jobs or different jobs in the private sector. So it was an excellent fit for me, and I fully expected to work there for my whole career. But once I settled in and I was, promoted, and I felt, okay, I've learned my job. I know how to do this job now. I'm comfortable. And my husband was in the tough years of his residency when he was away from home a lot in the evenings or overnight. And we didn't have our son at that point. And I thought, okay, now is the time that I pick up on the second part of what I'd like to do and just try for that first novel.
So at that point, this is Linda. So at this point, you hadn't written anything. You were really fully invested in your job, and
absolutely.
So you hadn't even thought about a book or a draft or anything. And then you said, "Okay, now it is." And did it just come to you?
I spent some time thinking about what might be a good idea to write about, and I wanted it to be something touching and inspiring. And the backstory of that. I come from, I was raised in a number of small towns, but I consider my hometown Paoli, Indiana, which is this tiny little town in southern Indiana. And back in the 1940s, there was a man there named Saul Strauss who fled Nazi Germany, and he settled in Paoli with his mother, and he opened a dry goods store in town. And, back then, this was before political correctness, and, even though the area today is really not very diverse, back then it was even less so. And while people interacted with him and they did business with him, because he was Jewish, he was really not fully embraced by the community. And yet, after living there for a number of years, he passed away, and people in town were shocked to learn that he had left $5 million to the town of Paoli to be used for the benefit of its people. And
wow.
I just thought that was so amazing to hear of someone who wasn't fully embraced and yet who loved the people in return, even despite the fact that he was a little bit on the outside edge. So I thought it would be a fabulous concept to use for the central storyline of a novel. Basically, the story of someone who was not fully understood or appreciated by her community, and yet who manages to do something to affect the lives of everyone in the town, unknowing to them. So that's the idea that I came up with, for the overall concept. And I started filling in the gaps and outlining and that sort of thing, and then I started writing. It took 2.5 years to come up with the first draft because I was working at the time. But I finally did have it, and then so I had this huge manuscript, and I thought, okay, the next step I had to research about how to go about getting published. And back then, ebooks didn't exist. No one knew what an e-reader was. And so I started the process of refining the manuscript as best I could by getting feedback and editing it on my own. And also I started looking for a literary agent to shop it around. And I knew that would take a long time. It did take a very long time. It took over a year and over 200 rejections. But I knew that this is what you had to go through, and I didn't feel any pressure. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do in my life. I'm going to get a book done sometime in my life, and if this one doesn't work, then so be it. I'll do another one, but I'm going to continue to plow ahead. And so every time I got a rejection, I'd send out another query letter. And, I started getting a little bit of feedback from agents, which was really helpful because it's the first sort of professional feedback that I had. And I would use that to modify my query letter or the first couple chapters to make it a little more gripping. And so I finally got a note from a very good agent named Lori Liss, who I knew of her because she was the agent who found Bridges of Madison County. And,
oh, nice.
And I was very shocked when she asked to read the whole manuscript, but I sent it off, and 3 days later she called me and offered representation. So it was very quick when it happened, and I still really couldn't believe it at that time, but she also told me that it would be a tough sell. It was a quiet book. I hadn't published anything, but she loved the story, and she was willing to fight for it. So, someone of her caliber, that's, and me being completely unknown and completely unpublished, that's all I could ever ask for in an agent. She was very well established, of course. So she worked for 2 years to try to place the book, and just never found a home for it. Again, it was, a very quiet story. It didn't involve vampires or anything supernatural or a boy wizard or anything that was popular at the time, and it wasn't easily classifiable into one genre. It wasn't a mystery novel. It wasn't a romance novel, although it had elements of both of those things. So we decided to put the book in a drawer, and we agreed to keep in touch. And she said, when you have a second novel, give me a call, and we'll go for it again. And I said, that's fine.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here because
Sure.
we got to go to commercial break. This is a great cliffhanger. You talk about maybe a quiet book, but we're going to leave the audience with a cliffhanger, though anybody can go online and see The Mill River Redemption and The Mill River Recluse by Darcie Chan, our bestseller. So, we're kind of stepping ahead there. This is Sandra Beck, and this is Powered Up Talk Radio with Linda Franklin. For those of you that missed the first half of the show, you can check us out on iTunes. We have over 100 episodes on iTunes you can download and listen to. You can also go to powereduptalkradio.com or go to our host station, toginet.com, TOGINET.com, and listen to this and all of the episodes coming up. When we come back from the break, we are going to hear what happened to Darcie Chan with her manuscript that now is defunct, sitting in a drawer. And when you come back, we're going to find out what happened. More after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Be here for Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer, Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com. Tricia will dig deep into topics that matter most to women, inspiring women to make a change in their own lives and to make a difference in the world, and maybe even deep within their own hearts. Tricia is a wife, mom, speaker, family expert, and author of 24 books. For more information on Tricia and Living Inspired, go to her website, TriciaGoyer.com. That's TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia's vision is to be the voice of hope and possibility for women of all ages. Her intention is to serve ordinary women by encouraging extraordinary things with God's help. Tricia expresses real life, real hope for real women. Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer. Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com. If you could live your life truly standing in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, wouldn't that make your heart soar? Now you can, with Lessons in Joyful Living, with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi, Mondays at noon Central. Kimberly Rinaldi, having created a highly successful coaching practice, now teaches Lessons in Joyful Living. She believes in empowering others and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers, thus allowing you to reach your greatest potential and joyfully step into your life's purpose. What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now teach you in a matter of hours with her programs. For more on Kim and her show, go to her website, KimberlyRinaldi.com. That's RINALDI.com. Then join us for Lessons in Joyful Living with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's some more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
This is for all you girls.
Hey, ladies, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and we are visiting with New York Times bestselling author Darcie Chan. And before we went to break, Linda, we were talking to Darcie about this manuscript that she wrote, that she got over 200 rejections, finally gets an agent, shops it around for a couple of years, all to no avail. Darcie, I'm going to go back to you to find out, well, what happened next?
Sure. Well, we were at a standstill with the manuscript, and it actually sat in the drawer for several years. My husband finished school. We moved to another state. My job got very busy. We had our son, and I'm still trying to catch up on sleep from all of those things. But I noticed that ebooks had exploded in popularity during that time. And I thought, well, gee, I have this manuscript that, I have nothing to lose by uploading it. It had already been shopped around. And I thought, well, maybe I could get some feedback from people who don't know me and use that to write a better second novel. So I uploaded the manuscript in May of 2011. Things were very slow at first. I didn't do any marketing ahead of time, and I suddenly realized afterwards I had to do something to get it noticed. So I tried to do some cheap online marketing on different ebook blogs. And within a month, we had sold about 100 copies, which, was more than I ever expected to sell so quickly. And then the first feature that I'd lined up on one of these big ebook blogs hit, and we sold another 600 copies in 2 days. So my husband was like, whoa, maybe you could sell like 1,000. And I thought that would be amazing. And the numbers kept going up and up and up. And in July, I'd been out there for about 2 months, and we had hit 14,000 sales. And I called my agent, and I said, something is going on, and I really don't know what it is. It's not anything that I'm doing. But I thought you should know about this. And she says, okay, just keep me posted. She's like, we could go back on submission with it if it continues to take off. And the next month she called me and she said, Darcie, she said, check your email. And I did. And there was an email from her with a PDF of the advanced copy of the New York Times bestseller list. And my book was listed as number 12, and it had sold around 100,000 copies by then. So everything after that just started to completely snowball. The sales continued to increase. It got a lot more publicity for being on the Times list. And I was getting emails from people all over the world. The Wall Street Journal did a feature on this publication journey that I'd been on in December. And we started selling foreign rights to various countries. And then right before Christmas that year, Random House offered me a 2-book contract to write a couple of additional Mill River novels. And then here I was with my dream, sort of extended out to me, and a legal career that I still loved. And I just was completely overwhelmed for a while. But after a lot of soul searching, and I did investigate the possibility of writing the books and keeping my job, but because I was an employee of the federal government, there were lots of restrictions on what I could do for outside employment. So it just became clear that I would have to make a choice. And I talked with my family, and I talked with my parents, I talked with my husband, and I just decided to follow my heart. And so I resigned my legal position, and I've been writing fiction full-time since April 2012.
Wow. What a great success story. Great story. And what it shows is, you persevered, you didn't give up. I loved what I heard from you when you said something to the effect of, well, every time I got a rejection, I would just send out another query letter. So
absolutely.
was a big key, I think, in your success. You didn't get down on yourself. You actually let the rejection energize you.
Absolutely. You have to expect it. And not only that, but I tried to look for feedback in any rejections that I got. You know, if someone made a comment about what he or she liked or didn't like, I took note of that. And when I started seeing patterns of, you know, this drags, the middle of the book drags, or, you know, this character doesn't seem well-rounded, or whatever, I would use that. And so I think if you look at rejection positively as just part of the process, something that you have to go through and something you can learn from, I think that really improves your chances of finding success in the end.
Before we let you go, I just want to ask you, did you find out what happened when all of a sudden it started to move up and get more popular? Was it the Internet? Was it word of mouth? Did you ever find out what was that spark that ignited this huge flame?
As best I can tell, and I've thought a lot about this because people have asked me so many times, I think that I got the book in front of a number of, you know, a couple thousand people, probably through the features that I'd lined up on these ebook blogs that recommend new ebooks to people. And then I think that enough people read the book and liked it that they started telling other people about it. And I think it's a word-of-mouth chain reaction. I don't think any book that reaches bestseller status does so without that word of mouth behind it. And it's how to get that going is, you know, the $10 million question here. But I think in my case, that's the only thing that I can think of that drove the sales, you know, to the levels that they reached.
No, that's terrific because, you know, you hear a lot of people doing these Amazon, you know, ads and different promotions where they get a lot of different writers to promote the book so it becomes number one on the list, and they give out little tokens of thanks. But you didn't do any of that, and it happened. You know, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Well, and let me ask you, Darcie, what was going through your head with respect to changing your career? Like when you said, you know, you glossed over it about, you know, like you have restrictions of what you can do and not do, you know, after the type of job you had. And I mean, was there fear involved in it? Was there excitement? Like, were your feelings all over the map? What did it feel like?
It was completely all over the map. I was completely giddy at the fact that here I was being offered the chance to write, you know, a couple more new books. And, you know, I wanted to do that very much, but at the same time, I'm a very cautious person by nature, and I've never, until I started writing full-time, I've never been in a situation where I didn't have a job with a steady paycheck coming in. So it was almost like a leap of faith, you know, that I was going to have to, you know, to take a risk. And, you know, thankfully my husband is, you know, he also, he does still have the steady paycheck job, and so he was willing to, you know, support me in making this decision. But again, you know, it's like I would never feel right not contributing to my family's income. I'm just very independent that way. I've always viewed our relationship as, you know, as a partnership in every way. So I wanted to be, I wanted to be able to maintain that. And
more and more women have to feel that way. I think it would be, I think it would really put them in a much different position.
Oh, well, you know, it's just one of those things. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to take the leap and then not be able to come through with you know, what I considered my share. So, and plus I also wanted to, you know, I view writing as, it's definitely a full-time job. I didn't really appreciate that before I did it, but there are so many things that a writer has to do these days in addition to just cranking out the manuscript and going through the proofs and the edits. But, I mean, there's the whole social media game now, and
marketing.
Promotion.
Marketing is everything.
Yes. You know, and it's continuing to increase, you know, the what the author is expected to do because, you know, there's a lot more competition. It's really tough to sell books these days. You're competing for people's attention. You know, not everybody would want to read a book these days. There's television and movies and video games and, you know, everything else that people do, you know, with the limited spare time that they have. So, it's the great unknown, really. Even with a contract from a publisher, it's still, you know, a finite period, and then it really depends on what your books do and how they're received and how you promote them. And so it was definitely a scary moment, but I knew that if I didn't do it, I would look back and always wonder what if. And to me, that I could not live the rest of my life feeling that way. So that's why I decided to take a chance.
Okay. All right. So, Darcie, I want to thank you for being our guest today. I wanted to ask you to stay on the line because we're having a little trouble getting Gail Carruthers out of Toronto. So, stay on the line with me. And, we've got Gail. Okay. All right. So, Darcie, thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing your journey and your inspirational experience with us. I think the books that you've written are great. They are near and dear to my heart because they are small town, and I am a small town girl, so I resonated a lot with them. I wish you the best of luck on your success with your upcoming books. And we're going to segue away from Darcie, what you talked about, that mindset about changing careers or taking the leap, as you said. And you wanted to still be a full participant in your family financial structure, which both Linda and I were like, yay! But Gail, are you on the line with us? We've got Gail Carruthers of the Spiritual Women's Network, Spiritual Girlfriend. Gail, are you there?
I am here.
Yay! Okay, so we got Darcie, we got Gail, we got everybody, and it's 2 minutes to break. So we've only got 2 minutes to break, and Gail, I want to ask you to chime in. You were listening to some of Darcie's things that she was talking about. What do you think is the hardest thing women face when transitioning from a successful career to a second career that fulfills them?
You know what, I would say, honestly, a lot of the times it's the courage to take that next step. To the degree that even if this is a step that you've longed for, and maybe it's something that you've kind of pushed to the margins all your life, but it's taking that step, because a lot of the times there's a financial, I don't want to say hit, but like a pause, let's say. Whether you're re-gearing up, whether that next step requires the infrastructure of technology, website development, marketing, that sort of idea, but it's just that it's that pause, and it's that bravery to kind of take that step to think, well, I'm going to have to do A, B, and C. Well, that's okay. Do A, B, and C. Or I'm not going to make as much money for the next few years. Or it's just those unknowns, because we get comfortable. We get very comfortable. And
we do get comfortable. And Gail, I'm gonna bring you back after the break, Linda and I, to talk a little bit more about this. We're visiting with Gail Carruthers, and when we come back from the break, we're going to learn more about Gail, but we want to make sure we thank Darcie Chan. Check out her books. They really are quite good. The Mill River Redemption and the Mill River Recluse. You will enjoy them. They're wonderful. Her name is Darcie Chan. That's spelled DarcieChan. Now, when we come back from the break, we're going to head over to Toronto, and we're going to talk to Gail Carruthers, and we're going to talk more about the mindset and what it takes to jump into this second career that we all want to have with our fulfilling lives. Back with Gail and Linda and Sandra, more after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
In today's business world, a helping hand or idea that doesn't come with an invoice is a treasured find. And if that happens to you, then you need to pay it forward to keep other entrepreneurs from making mistakes or getting a raw deal. It's called Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 10, 9 a.m. Central. Josephine is going to have the guests describe their accomplishments, the lessons they've learned, both good and bad, and then sharing those pieces of knowledge as we create a movement of paying it forward. For more information about Josephine, her business, and background, you can go to mymomknowsbest.com. Josephine Gerasi has always been a problem solver. She saw this need and has turned it into a movement. It's Paying It Forward, with tips, tools, and advice and hard lessons learned. These pieces of knowledge can make a huge difference for you, your business, and others. So join us for Paying It Forward with Josephine Gerasi, Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
The Woohoo Radio Network presents the Diva Download with Tracy and Tasha. If you think Diva is all about attitude and drama, think again. The Diva Download is the premier online radio program where girls of all ages, shapes, sizes, and colors get together to redefine what it means to be a diva so that all girls can discover their inner diva and develop a healthy sense of self-worth and self-esteem. Being a true diva means you're diverse, involved, value-driven, and active. That's today's diva. If you want to celebrate the girl in your life through education, encouragement, empowerment, and entertainment, join us every week on Tuesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time and celebrate the essence of being a girl only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin, and we are visiting with Gail Carruthers, who comes from us from the chilly northeast of Toronto. And Linda, you know a little bit about Toronto too, don't you?
Yes, I was born in Toronto. Still have family in Toronto, but I left for New York City when I was 19. But I can say it's my hometown, and it's a great hometown. And since I was a kid there, it's changed like 192%. It's a fabulous city.
Oh, so do we have Gail?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm here.
You're supposed to chime in about how fabulous Toronto is.
For me. Oh, Toronto is fabulous. I actually live just outside of the city, but I grew up in Toronto, so I attest to it. It's growing huge. It's a world-class city now, and it's a gorgeous city. So, yeah, I'm love to hear a fellow Torontonian there. So that's great.
That's right, and lots of opportunity, because I think the women there. Sometimes they're a step behind, and so I think that they want to catch up. So I think you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I think so too.
So Gail, when we went to break, we were talking with Darcie Chan, and she has such an amazing story about resiliency and keeping going and consistency and not giving up on her dream. And then it was funny when she talked about that leap to, oh gosh, she's got a book contract, and now what? What do I go forward with my dream? You've had a similar experience.
Yeah, I mean, I understood exactly what Darcie was saying, and I could relate to that. In the sense that my story is a little bit different. I was a founder of a children's shoe company, and that took, at the time I was running this shoe company, and it was my own brand of shoes. So I wasn't, it was my own brand. I was developing my own brand. I had literally jumped on a plane by myself and gone to China and found all my own manufacturing and developed it right from the soul up, really.
Good one.
And it was now in the highest, the highest end shoe stores, children's shoe stores in Toronto, and they were selling well. And then my life took a big turn, and I also developed at the same time. I was getting into my development of an online, my podcast series, which is Spiritual Girlfriend Podcasts. And I was unexpectedly loving my podcast series. Like the first time I did a podcast series with a microphone and recorded my show and actually did my show live, I felt like I was a duck that finally found water, that didn't realize they weren't supposed to waddle on ground anymore. And I thought, oh boy, what am I going to do here? Because I loved it so much, and I was still running my shoe company, and I was, but my pull was really going over to this podcast series, and I kind of started it on a whim, like I kind of started it as a side sort of thing, and then it became, in my whole, the last, X number of decades, I've been heavily involved in developing my own self-awareness and my own spirituality. And it was really leading me down this road, and it wasn't something I was expecting. So I really had to make that decision. And my heart was no longer in my shoes. I had lost my soul for my shoes. And I was just, it took a lot to really get to that point of getting over my own preconceived notion of what success was and letting it go, but letting it go on a positive high note, not a note of failure, because it wasn't. It served its purpose in my life on many levels, and it was no longer what I wanted to do. But admitting that was huge. It took It took me close to a year to really come to that admitting and realization without it feeling like I was doing something wrong. By saying, well, how do I just now pick up and go into this whole genre of this online podcasting series that I was really enjoying? But it just became to the point where that's just where my interest completely lied, and I, without feeling like a flake, but at the same time, I knew that from my spiritual development that I've learned to trust the flow of what comes into my life. And I've learned to go with the flow, and I've learned to trust it. The way the whole shoe company was developed was a whole leap of faith to begin with. So I guess in that way it was allowing myself to recognize, okay, this is, I can, if I can build this, and I can do this properly, and I can get this to where I want it to be without it becoming like I guess a lot of times people are afraid to make those steps because they're financially, they don't know how they're going to do it, because they're thinking, oh, well, my life is going to have to change, or there's going to have to be some adjustments. And there might be, but I guarantee you it's all worth it in the end. Like it's just taking that. I do believe if you take that step, the solutions are there. I just think it's getting over that hump of such insecurity and such courage to go, this is what I want to do. But those transitions I think they're opportunities in life. I think they're huge opportunities.
If it only took you a year to transition, then I think you're lucky. When I left Wall Street, it took me a lot longer than a year to and I didn't have a transition. I didn't have a burning desire of knowing what I wanted to do next. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what it was.
Yep.
So I guess like you, I had to go on a little journey and work on a lot of things, including my spiritual, including menopausal issues, including the change in appearance, change in relationships, all of that. And then I started a blog and started to write about it, just like your network. Then I started the blog. And then from there, now I'm running a charity for women veterans, and I never thought of that in a million years. It just happened, and I just went with it. I'm different because I didn't have all of these passions and dreams, but things just came into my life, and I said,
absolutely.
Okay.
And that, I think that's a very good point. That not to wait for the vision and the idea, because what happens is you get traction as you just move ahead. Sometimes you have no idea where you're going to go ahead. The podcast series kind of was a hobby. I really wasn't thinking of it being a career. But I couldn't believe how much I was enjoying it. And then that just sort of took on legs of its own. But I think if women get immobilized a lot because they think they don't have a clear picture, and I'm a true believer that if you just take steps forward into anything, whether it's like you said, you started a blog, right? Writing about changes that were happening on so many different levels. That takes on legs of its own, and then it goes to here, and then the next thing you know, like you said, you're running a charity. Well, I think it's just about taking steps in some direction, in something that remotely interests you, and that in itself is going to be the next step that's going to take you around the bend, which is going to give you the next glimpse of where you want to go. I don't think anybody ever really has a full picture of what it is. I think life is full of bends that you have to kind of get around.
So,
well, I think the biggest thing that gets in my way is my own thoughts. I start to overthink, and Linda has been really great in working on this with me, because I can think myself through an entire career in an evening with a glass of wine in the bathtub, from start to finish, and then come up with all the reasons that I shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't, whatever. And I think it comes down to, I know with me, and I'd like to ask Linda, and I'd like to ask you, Gail, I just have to hold my breath and jump at some point. You have to pull the trigger, and that moment between, you pull the trigger and you don't seems like an eternity. Linda, what do you think?
No, I think so too. I mean, I knew nothing about the military. I'm from Canada. I mean, people ask me, were you in the military? Do you have family in the military? I said, absolutely not. It's just that women from Afghanistan started to write and telling me how much they enjoyed reading my blog and how empowering it was for them, in Afghanistan, because it was reconnecting them to their strong feminine power. And, from then I said, aha, they're thanking me. I got to be thanking them. Okay, I don't have no idea how I'm going to do that, but I know that I'm going to do that. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have, a vision. I just started to dive in and put one step in front of the other.
And I think that's what I was saying exactly, Linda, is that you started the blog, one thing, you got contact by ladies in Afghanistan, and that took you to the next thing. I want to respond back to them. I need to support them back. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Most people don't have a vision, and because they don't, that's what stops them. Because they think they have to have it planned out from A to Z before they take their first step. And I'm here to say, if you wait, the paralysis isn't going to stop. That is just paralysis. If you have an idea for one thing, start one thing. Start one little piece. You don't know where it's going to go, but that you have to take that step. It's like that. That song. Put one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other.
It's like you're going to be afraid, but do it anyway.
You have to do it anyways. It's about taking that courage to say, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going to take that leap of faith, and I'm going to just keep putting one step. I will figure it out. One of the things that I did when I started my shoe company, when I jumped on a plane and went to China, everybody kept saying to me, how are you going to ship your shoes back? I actually had no idea how I was going to do that next logistical step. A very key thing. I hadn't figured out shipping yet. But I said, if I wait to have everything lined up before I do this, I will never do this. I got in the plane. I went to China. I figured it out in China. And everything.
Did you speak Chinese?
No, I don't speak Mandarin. I had that all.
Or Mandarin or whatever it is.
I had it. It's Mandarin, but I had that already. I had that hooked up with translators who I had hired.
Wow.
So it was, but I didn't have all my key things in place, and I spent a week in China. I had a meltdown in my hotel room because I'm like, what am I doing? And then because I wasn't finding anything, and then I had a aha moment. Who knows this city better than anybody? So I'm in taxis all day long. Bingo. I jumped in the taxi the next day. I asked them, a bunch of different questions. Bingo. I found exactly what I needed. So if you that's my point is I did not have a complete plan, but I figured it out to the point where I then was able to manufacture and design exactly what I wanted in China, had it shipped to Canada, and sold in the top-level shoe stores in Toronto.
Amen to that, my sister. Okay, we are at Powered Up Talk Radio. Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Catch us again next week for more great stories like Gail and Darcie had today.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and